Welcome everyone to the Power Associations Awards webinar, Behind the Curtain, What You Need to Know Before You Apply. Whether you're joining live or watching the recording as you're feverishly working on your application before the deadline, thanks for joining. We have really great speakers today. So pleased to welcome our chair, Mark Vasquez, the Senior Program Manager for IEEE and Chair of the Power of Associations Awards, and Victoria Forlini, Director of Meetings for AGU, Vice Chair of the Awards Committee, and a former two-time winner of the awards. We also have another special guest, Chris Best, ASAE's Vice President of Corporate Communications. He's the one that when you're not sure which category to apply for, you call and he walks you through it. He's been working on the awards for 20 years. And myself, I'm Mary Kate Cunningham, the Senior Vice President of Public Policy at ASAE, and really pleased to work on this awards program. The awards are critical because they give us the stories of incredible work associations are doing in every sector and industry, and we bring those stories to the Hill and to policymakers and to the media. And this year especially, we are upping our game on this effort, and we're very excited to get these stories and be able to use them to tell the Power of Association story. So without further delay, I will hand the floor over to our chair, to Mark.
Thank you, Mary Kate. And as Mary Kate mentioned, I'm Mark Vasquez. I have the honor of serving as the chair for this year's awards committee. I have served on the committee for 3 or 4 years at this point, and I've seen a lot of the wonderful work that all of the dedicated volunteers that are a part of this have contributed to the process. What we'd like to do today to start off is to give you a little bit of background about the awards themselves, and also walk you through what the application looks like, and also as a part of that process to talk about some of the changes that we've made that we hope will improve things both for applicants and for people involved in the judging process. So just as a reminder to you all, the Power of Associations Awards, and I should mention that we now refer to it as the full Power of Associations Awards as opposed to just the Power of A Awards. They are ASAE's highest honor, and they recognize associations that have gone above and beyond their stated mission to employ and implement initiatives that have far-reaching benefit. And by far-reaching, we don't necessarily mean that they have to be, say, global in nature, but that they have an impact that's very important to their profession or their industry. Awards are given in 5 categories: advocacy, community support and engagement, diversity and inclusion, global development, and industry and professional advancement. And there is also a 6th award, which for now we're calling Chair's Choice, which is a standalone award that's awarded, in this case, will be by myself and Victoria this year for one program in particular that we want to notice in a special way. Just briefly about each of these categories. So advocacy is focused primarily on government and private sector interactions, policy development. If you're doing any work, for example, at the local, state, or federal level where you're looking to employ policy related to your profession, that kind of thing is what we would be looking for in the advocacy space. Community support and engagement is focused primarily on responses to societal problems, attention to underserved populations, responses to natural disasters, and volunteerism in general. Diversity and inclusion is focused on D&I related activities in the workforce and workplace, at the volunteer level, at the member level, and also any programming that you've developed as an association in those spaces. Global development is focused on things such as a world economy, a global policy, global societal needs, and advancing the standing of your profession or your industry in a global way. And then finally, industry and professional advancement, which is focused on things such as developing standards, advancing codes of ethics, professional development courses and training, research. And one thing I should mention is that although campaigns are a part of this, we are not looking in the Power of A Awards, Power of Associations Awards, for programs that are solely campaigns around advancing the association. So we're not looking for marketing campaigns. That's something that we have referred people to the Gold Circle Awards. We're primarily focused on campaigns or awareness around an industry or a profession if you choose to submit a campaign-related application. And then, as I mentioned, Chair's Choice is something that Victoria and I will huddle about afterwards if we find a program that we want to especially notice, and they can be in any of the categories above. We do award a Summit Award, a top award in each of the 5 categories. And there are also gold and silver level awards that are presented to other notable programs in each of those categories. Now, you know, you don't often see a list like this coming from this committee, but we wanted to make you all aware of the fact that there are scores of people involved in reviewing applications, scoring applications, and ultimately selecting the winners. We have this year, including Victoria and myself, we have 27 people on the committee. We come from a variety of organization sizes. We come from different parts of the association world. We have CAEs and non-CAEs. We have folks who are in technology spaces, in civil spaces. So we have a pretty broad mix of representation on the committee. And these are the folks, this list of people that you see on the screen here are people that have served on the committee and some who are brand new. But we will be dedicating the next several months, once applications close, to review the hundreds of applications that come in and to then select the winners. So for the next couple of minutes, I thought it might be worthwhile for those of you who are watching, and thanks again to all of you who have joined us and who are watching this back. I wanted to give you a sense of the application and what it looks like, not in terms of the actual screen views, but the content that's included in them. We have gone through some edits this year that we think will make the process easier for those who are applying. We've reorganized some of the content, we've restructured some of the questions, and we've also reduced and limited some of the questions as well, so we can really narrow things down. We've also provided a lot clearer direction on what we're looking for in each of these fields, and we'll talk a bit more about a guide that we've prepared that will give you a step-by-step instruction for each of the fields. So the first portion of the application is very simple. It's just information about the applicant, be it the person who's actually filling it out or the representative for the organization. Name, title, email, phone, address, very simple information. The second screen is about the association itself, and it starts out with asking not just the name of the association, but if you are a consultant that is submitting the application on behalf of an association, we want you to indicate that here and let us know who you are. There are associations who work with a consultant who sometimes may handle some of this application process. We ask for things at the association level, like your mission statement, the size of your membership, what your total budget is like, what your budget for the program is, and that's a new question this year. So we're looking at not just the budget that you have as an association, but the resources that you put behind the program that you're submitting, the size of the staff, your website, and your diversity statement, if you have one. The next section is about the program itself and some general information about the program, what it's called, which of the 5 categories that I mentioned earlier it belongs to, and you can only choose one category. So it's very important to read through the descriptions of each of them and make sure that you're submitting the program in the category that you think best fits the work that you've done there. We also ask if the program has been submitted for a Power of A award in the past. And the reason we ask that is that we are now adopting more clearly this year a policy that indicates that if you have been awarded a Power of A award in the past at any level, gold, silver, or summit, that you cannot resubmit the program for another award. The belief there is that we're not looking for people, we're not looking for programs that are looking to get a better award. We're looking to reward folks who haven't been recognized in the past. So that's a new question we've added this year. We ask you about where the program stands. You know, is it something you've just launched? Is it something that is now evergreen and has been completed? We ask how many volunteers have been involved in the process. We ask if you're working with other groups on this program, and if you are, who those partners are. And also we want to make sure that those partners are aware of the fact that you're submitting the application. And then the final portion of the application, which is probably, as I like to call it, the meat of the application, or the protein of your choice of the application, is where we really ask you for details about the program itself. And I'm going to hand it over to Victoria now to walk us through this particular part. Victoria?
Thanks, Mark. Hello, everyone. I'm Victoria Forlini. I am a director at the American Geophysical Union, and I've been on the judging committee for, I think, 6 or 7 years. And I got to say, I was wowed when I first started judging, and I still am every year, at the extent of work and the quality and the way that associations reach people's lives. And to what Mark just said, the real program details are the meat. And this is where the judges really start to get a feel for what the program is. And we get programs from large associations and small associations that have sometimes incredible reach globally and sometimes very specific reach within an audience. And this is where you actually tell us what is going on so we can see what the impact is. So what's the overview of the activity or the program that you're doing? Certainly it should be mission critical, or you should be linking it to mission or to some kind of overarching work that your organization is doing. We want to hear about why you're doing it, right? So what problem or issue is being addressed? And that doesn't mean that you can only apply if there's something wrong or something has to be fixed. It could be you really branching out on your mission and really addressing where you see some good synergies with your organization and other organizations or society or communities, looking back at those program categories that we have. What is your reach? So that could be, again, like something, it could be something very local or it could be something global. It depends on what your program is. And because we do get large programs and small programs, large associations and small associations, I know a lot of people worry sometimes about what if our reach isn't huge? Well, it's the impact of the reach. So please don't make that a barrier to applying. Objectives and outcomes are something that judges look at a lot. And we really want to see what outcomes you have. And you can link to supporting data, and I'll get to that in a minute, but really, like, what did you set out to do with this program and what have you achieved? And it's okay if the objectives and the outcomes don't necessarily match and you talk about a transition journey. It's fine if they match exactly. However it is, we just want to know the direct impact of what that program is and how it's beyond just your day-to-day work, or how you've changed your work in order to be more effective and to have more outcomes. Embodying the power of associations is where you get a chance to put in a bit of a narrative on why being an association enables you to do this and how associations can do this better than other groups. So this is your chance to really kind of explain a bit if you want. And then we have these areas where you can tell us more about your program, because you've got, kind of those boxes, of course, to fill in the rest of it. So you're supporting data as an attachment, or you're supporting data as a description. And I encourage everyone to think about what supporting data you have. So if you have a couple of videos you made, or you've created some kind of literature, you consider how that enables your application to be more complete, and how that would give judges a better view of what your program is, or how you've really kind of stretched to create this program and then to execute it. We get some applications that have no supporting data. We get some that have 1 or 2 things. And then we have some that provide 7 or 8 different supporting data and attachments. We just want you to think of it through the lens of how does this create that complete circle view for judges as we are looking at the scope and the outcomes of your program. So this is the real meat, like I said, and Mary Kate and Mark, if you have any other quick thoughts on how people should be thinking about the application and the program details, I would appreciate you saying them.
I will let our chair say anything if he's got other thoughts.
No, I'm good. I think one thing I will reinforce that Victoria just said is that as part of the judging group, it's very important for us that you as an applicant have provided us with as much core information about the results of your program as possible. It helps us to distinguish. I mentioned earlier that there's a question about your program status. So it helps to distinguish between programs that have just kicked off and just launched and those that have really gotten to the point where there are some noticeable, measurable results that we can base our decisions on. And that's not to say that programs that have just started aren't worthy of being noticed or mentioned, But we're really looking to reward and honor those programs that have gone beyond just those initial stages and have really begun to have a clear impact in their community, in their profession, in their industry, et cetera.
And this has been a change over the years to focus more on the supporting data and the substance of the program. And I think it's helped us get some really great winning programs.
So Victoria, as a prior winner, did you want to talk a bit about your own experience through this and sort of what you've learned in that process and obviously what you bring to the table as part of the committee because of that?
Sure.
As a two-time winner and expert at your organization, we would love to hear more.
Yeah.
Lessons learned.
Well, it's I've been very fortunate at AGU. We've actually had 3 different programs win over 2019, 2020, and 2021. And I'll talk just briefly about them. And I will also say that, yes, I was directly involved with the 2020 winner, which got 2 awards. That's my brag for a moment, 2 Summit Awards in 1 year. And of course, as a judge, I will also say that I did not judge those. I recused myself, and I recused myself from any discussions relating to that category when there was an AGU application, whether I was directly involved with that program or not. And of course, I did not vote in that as well. So that's my conflict of interest statement right there. But, you know, AGU, we are a larger organization. And so the first thing I want to say is you do not have to be a large organization to have impact. But this is how we kind of think about our larger programs. We have our programs that, of course, keep the lights running and they do lots of innovative things. And then we look to our mission statement, which talks about being an organization that looks at benefiting humankind and the environment through earth sciences, discovery of earth sciences, and application of earth sciences. And for us, all of our programs go back to that mission and then the strategic plan around it. And we do talk about society and science interactions. So all 3 of the programs that have won Summit Awards have had that link. The first was the Thriving Earth Exchange, which I think we're going to show a little video on in 2019. And that program actually started back in like 2013, 2014. So we did wait a while to do that application, but it really looks at, and it's an acknowledgement that there are priorities in the community that science can help with. Science doesn't have to lead all the time. Science shouldn't be telling people what to do. Like, community has a priority, and we've created this network where science and scientists can help the communities get where the community needs to go to. And so that's really connecting the science and society aspect to it. Our 2020 Centennial was the one I was directly involved with, and that really looked at 100 years of AGU and what are the next 100 years going to look like. So we have a lot of programs on our science and looking how science has changed over the past 100 years, and a lot of programs and a lot of focus on the future and where is science going and where is humanity's need for understanding science or using science going as well. And then last year, our Ethics and Equity Center, that's mission critical. So you can't have an equitable scientific workplace without ethics and equity, and AGU began to actively be involved in equity and ethics work in 2015 as an organization. So, you know, all of these are something where, you know, we're an organization mainly of scientists, right? And so, but we don't want to stay in that vacuum. We understand that science is everywhere, and that we as an organization that advocates for science and for the benefit of humanity through science need to be within community as well. And that focus began, and then these programs began to go out. So that's just kind of the background and the context. And like I said, you know, we as a larger organization are able to stand up kind of larger projects, but they can be scaled in smaller ones. And we'll talk about one in a little while that had a great mission critical moving forward, the Coin Laundry Association. So just as an organization, that's how we think. We always think through the strategic plan and the mission and what's kind of our next. I will say that for AGU, for three years in a row, of awards, it's very exciting, and it's been fun to see the teams that have been involved as they learn that they've earned these awards. Our board has been very excited. You know, 8-9 years ago, when the Thriving Earth Exchange was proposed, as something where we work with communities and the communities have the priorities and we follow that community, that's a big deal to say that, right? That's how we're going to create a program. And so just the amount of leadership and now scientists that we see who are interested in being involved with that, it's really a joy to kind of see a community kind of evolving as our organization evolves. And it's a lot of fun too. We've been to the awards dinner and, you get to see AGU up there. But it's a reward for a lot of work for a lot of people, not just the ones whose names happen to be attached for it. So, the thing that, linking this back to judging and linking this back to outcomes, like I said, the Thriving Earth Exchange started in 2013 or 2014. It wasn't put in for an award until 2019. Centennial started in 2015 and went in for an award in 2020. And the Ethics Center started in 2015 as well and went in for an award in 2021. And that isn't to say that every program should have a long lead time. It is to say that we had certain goals or outcomes we wanted to be able to show for ourselves, for AGU, to our governance, to our members, to ourselves. And that is important to the Power of A Awards, those outcomes, as Mark and Mary Kate had said. So, it's been a fun curve as a judge to see AGU's programs and to see them within the context of many other amazing programs as well. And then just as an employee, it's good to see a recognition for different parts of the organization that you're with. So it's been fun. We'll see how it goes for 2022. I don't even know if we're gonna put any in. And when I say that we, like I said, I am completely recused from anything involving an application or a judging for AGUs.
I'll just speak to that really quickly too. There's such serious conflicts of interest protections on this committee. I've always been really impressed. Staff have no kind of impact in all of the different processes, and yeah, it's a really, I love the seriousness of which the committee takes those conflicts, because the association community is a small community and there's a lot of connections.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on a couple of things that Victoria just said as well. Number one, the word joy, which I wanted to touch on as well, is that for me, and I think others on the committee will say the same thing, or who have served on the committee in the past will say the same thing. This is one of those volunteer roles that is quite different from many others. There is a joy in this that you don't necessarily get in other volunteer roles, because what we're really here to do is to recognize people for and programs and associations for the work that they've done. We as a committee review, I mean, how many applications have we gotten in the last couple of years, Mary Kate? 150, 100, somewhere in the hundreds, right? 100 something. So we get to look as a committee, this year, the 27 of us will get to look at 100+ programs being run by associations around the country on a variety of things that all have some sort of impact. And for us to review those, it's incredibly inspiring. It makes our jobs difficult. And granted, if I'm being completely honest, and Victoria touched on this, one of the key things we use when we look at distinguishing between programs that we are looking to honor through an award and those that we may want to hold off on, it really does come down to those results, and really does come down to those measurable impacts that you've been able to report. So sometimes a newer program that may soon have an impact, we aren't able to reward right away, but it doesn't make us any less inspired by the work that they've done. So there's this, for us, I like that you use the word joy, Victoria, because I think there is a joy. It is a tedious process. I will grant you that as well. The number of applications that any one of us has to review can go upwards of 50 by the time we're all said and done. So there is a lot of work that we put into it, but it is very inspiring work. So I wanted to point that out, number one. And number two, something else that Victoria touched on, and I think we'll get to a couple of videos in a moment. While organizations like myself at IEEE and AGU may be considered maybe on the larger side in some respect, the fact is that our recipients run the gamut from larger organizations to very small local organizations as well. So this isn't skewed in any particular direction when it comes to the association. It really comes down to impact. And it really comes down to the way you've been able to showcase and indicate to us your very clear objective and how you met those objectives and the impact that that's had as a result. I know that there are some questions that have been coming through chat that are somewhat related to that. And maybe we can get to that in the Q&A section later on, which we will have. But I wanted to touch on those briefly now before we, and maybe this is the best time to show those videos to give people a sense of sort of the scope of the programs that we've honored in the past. And I think these two examples are really great because they do talk about, as a perfect segue from what Victoria was just talking about, an AGU program that's sort of on that grander scale, and one that that you might not even think that that we would even look at. And it's not just very local, but very targeted and very specific. And both of these were honored through awards, or we chose to honor through awards in the last couple of years. So do we want to play those now, Mary Kate? Is this a good time to play those?
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay, so let me reshare my screen and I will play those two videos for everyone. Okay. Here we go.
The Thriving Earth Exchange is a program where we partner with communities that need help with resilience, disaster reduction, or sustainability.
We match them with a volunteer scientist. We help those scientists' community teams work together, and then we try to find a way for science to help them address those priorities. And then we share the results so other people can benefit from the things they've discovered together.
The Thriving Earth Exchange started, just like everything, with a good idea.
It started in an advisory board meeting when people were thinking about what they could do to celebrate the past 100 years and really set the stage for the next 100 years. And the way we thought about doing that was partnering with people in the places they live, work, and play to do work that's locally meaningful.
So in terms of positive impacts, we've seen many of those.
In Denver, local community group was interested in how the environment was impacting their health. And they started doing some sampling in people's homes and realized that especially poorer residents were being exposed to radon. And the city ended up instituting a new program that helps low-income homeowners remediate radon from their homes.
Well, in 5 to 6 years, we've been able to benefit 100 communities. But our ultimate vision is that any community that could benefit from scientific expertise has the ability to access that expertise that they need.
This is a way of doing science in communities with people. By doing science with people, we get to explore new approaches to science, and that's going to help us evolve and innovate and stay relevant into the future.
So that was one example of a program that Victoria, sorry, hold on. Yeah, that was an example of a program that Victoria referenced a moment ago. I'm going to now go on to our next video.
For families across America, a trip to the local laundromat is part of a weekly routine. And as a collective voice for laundry professionals, the Coin Laundry Association believes it has a responsibility to give back to the communities it serves. That's why the association launched the Laundry Cares Foundation, which has partnered with the Clinton Foundation's Too Small to Fail initiative to support childhood literacy for families in poverty. The program engages children and whole families in meaningful reading activities during their visits to the laundromat, facilitating better outcomes for children by addressing the most significant factor influencing a child's early educational success, an introduction to books. ASAE is pleased to honor the Coin Laundry Association with the 2020 Power of A Summit Award.
I love those examples, Mark. They're terrific. And thinking about the small staff organizations, another really good example is the Georgia Association of Convenience Stores. And they earned a Summit Award in 2019 for their program to help stop human trafficking. And you think about a small staff organization, it's really the power of partnership that's able to help people get to the summit level. This program was a free program for when they saw that there were Georgia was like 7th for human trafficking in the country. They partnered with all of their members. It was an idea come up with by their Young Professionals Committee, and they were able to provide resources and education and training for all their members and have really incredible results with the number of people they were able to save with law enforcement. So another very interesting program. And I'll put the link in the chat where you can watch all the past winner videos. They're pretty inspiring.
I get goosebumps when I see the coin laundry video and the Georgia convenience store. That's a big one. I mean, looking at the impact that directly has, and those are small groups. And so, you know, you don't need to reach 1 billion people to have the impact. You can just work in your community. I just still get goosebumps over them. They're wonderful.
Yeah. Ditto.
So we have some questions in the chat. Feel free to ask more, and some other questions that were submitted ahead of time. So here's a question from Julie Broadway, our terrific member. How much background do you need to share with the committee to understand the industry? So she said, I'm guessing that many may not be deeply familiar with the horse industry and equine welfare issues. Good question.
So I think it would be helpful if you were able to gift everyone on the committee a horse so that we can get more. But that aside, since that's probably not doable and it's not something we would expect, we do not accept gifts on behalf of any association. Really, it's a really good question. From my standpoint, it's a really good question, because the fact of the matter is, as I mentioned before, any one of us on the committee is reviewing somewhere in the number of 50 or more applications by the time all is said and done. There is no way that we have experience or knowledge about every single association field that's being presented to us. So for us, we're very reliant on you as an association to treat us as an uninformed audience, treat us as a group that is not familiar with the work you do, nor the importance of the work that you do, and present it to us in that fashion. So basically, you're making a case to us, number one, about why the work you do is important, and number two, about why this program has an impact, an important impact in the space that you're telling us about. It's hard for me to say exactly how much you should or should not tell us, but if you think of us as, like I said, an educated but uninformed audience, that I think is your best approach. So providing us with as much information as you would. Say, for example, you were walking into a local community meeting where you're telling folks about the work that you do. You're being faced with a group that may not know who you are and the work you do. I would present information to us in that way. And then again, reinforcing what Victoria said, really making sure that you're very clearly indicating to us your objectives for the program and the measurable impacts that you've had.
Remember that you're providing us with your organization's mission statement for a starter. So we're going to have a general idea right there. And that part of the application deals with what problem or issue is addressed. So that could be a place to explain to us succinctly, but clearly what the problem is. And then to what Mark said, your objectives and your outcomes would be, of course, an excellent place. Think about the supporting data, supporting the program. I wouldn't use supporting data as like a big explainer of an industry, but more of a support for the program. But those other areas should be places where you can think about how to structure your application to give us an education. And part of you should know that part of the judging calls are really fun, because a judge will be like, yeah, I was looking at the website, and they like tell all these things they learned about the organization. So we will go and look at organizations as well to kind of see the scoping of things.
I wanted to follow up on a couple of things that Victoria just mentioned. One is one of the changes that we did make to the application that we hope will make things easier for both applicants and judges is that we've structured the questions to try to avoid situations that we've had in the past where some applicants have led in the application with a lot of their results and their goals and all that, and sort of packed that in up at the front, not realizing that there were questions about that later on in the application, and then all that information was either repeated or was just sort of glossed over. So we've restructured things to help you as an applicant more clearly focus in on what we're asking for at each step of the process, so that so that you as applicants aren't finding yourselves, repeating yourselves, or trying to figure out what should I put where, and that we as judges then don't have to read through the same sort of copy and paste situation that we've had in the past. That's number one. Number two, I will get to as soon as I remember what it was. It was something that Victoria mentioned at the very end about, oh, I'm forgetting now what it was. If I think about it, I'll come back to it. But it was something Victoria mentioned at the very end that I want to touch on. If I think about it, I'll come back to it.
And I'll just add that the application is really an exercise in brevity. It's the best applications are written by people who are communications experts, because you can have all the amazing outcomes and data, but you really need to write it in a way that's that stands out.
Oh, I know. I remember now what it was. And it was, yes, there will be times where we will go off and look at a website or look at other information. My preference as a judge, and one of the things that we've tried to reorchestrate in the organization of the application itself, is that I would prefer that we as judges are more reliant and almost maybe solely reliant on the information that you have provided to us in the application. We shouldn't have to look elsewhere to find supporting information. So while it's true that some of us may go off and be interested in finding out more about the association, it really isn't our role to find information that supports your application. We're really relying on you as an applicant to provide us with what you believe is the information that best supports your application. So I just want to make it clear that we're not sort of giving you an out in that by saying, don't worry, we'll check the website. No, worry, because we're not necessarily going to do that. And we're not, in fact, going to do that as a standard course of action.
It's an important clarification for sure. And sometimes we just get really curious about.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was like, oh my goodness, I had no idea. This is so interesting.
The hallmark of association professionals is intellectual curiosity. So
Yeah.
I love to learn. So here's a question from Joe Romanecki, former Star Associations Now editor, regarding partners. Is there a definition of what qualifies? Must it be a formal arrangement, or can informal stakeholders be included in the application?
You know, somebody else had a question about that earlier in chat, and I think they had to leave early. They said, so one of the things I said in response to that person who had to leave early was that, and Victoria, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know that we've ever actually sat down and sort of clearly defined what we mean by partner. So I'm going to give my take on what I believe it is, and then you can follow up. I think the example of the AGU video, let's take that as an example of what we just showed, the Thriving Earth video, where it was mentioned that AGU partnered with the Clinton Foundation to deploy this program. That is what I would consider a partnership. That's different than the example that somebody earlier in chat mentioned, where we worked with a vendor to deploy certain things. That's not the kind of partnership we're looking for. That's sort of more on the execution end. If you hired a firm to work on your marketing materials, or if you worked on, if you're doing something locally, like with the Coin Laundry Association, if they worked with the local deli to feed the workers one day, we're not looking for that kind of quote unquote partnership. I think we're looking for a more formal sort of strategic partnership where this program is being brought to you by AGU in partnership with the Clinton Foundation. That to me is where I think we make the distinction between what we really mean by a partner. So it's not somebody who's just there to help you in the deployment. It's somebody who's there, be it another association or another group that you're working with to actually define the goals and strategy for the program, and then work together to execute that.
And we have, it's all over the map on applications as to whether it's just the association or they have partners, and whether the partners are chapters of the association, for example, because you could have your independent chapters, you could list them, or other associations, academia. We've seen foundation support. The Clinton Foundation actually was partnering with the Coin Laundry Association.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
It's all right. I just want to make that clear, though. So again, looking at, we have small associations that win awards. We have large associations that win awards. We have non-partnered groups that win awards, and then partner groups that do as well.
And we added on the application a question about coalitions, and we've had instances before where two organizations apply for the same project. So we want you to share with all of your coalition members and make sure it's one application.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, Mary Kate, because we are looking for, if there are, 2 or 3 associations out there that are all working on the same program, we're not looking for 2 or 3 applications. It should be 1 application on behalf of all 3 associations or groups, or 2, 2 or 3.
Helps us avoid the politics of coalitions, definitely. Okay, so next question. This is probably our most common question. How do I know if my project is ready to apply? And there's no simple answer, but I would love to hear both of your thoughts.
So I just, go ahead, Victoria, go ahead.
I'm going to go back to the outcomes and whether you can start quantifying outcomes for your project. Some of the examples we've given today have been several years in the making. Every year we have projects that have been around for a year or 2, and they've got outcomes. And that really helps the judges understand the impact, which is one of the most important things. So it's really kind of thinking about where is my program in its life cycle and what kind of impacts can I show. I think also too, I remember a few years ago, we've had some programs, and one of the judges knew that it was like a program that had been in existence for 20 years. And I was so surprised. I was like, what? But they had retooled it. They didn't know about the Power of Association Awards 20 years ago. They were able to show, years and years of impact, right? But they were able to show how they were making sure that it was still relevant to impacts. And so you just have to have that you just have to kind of look back and say, if I were explaining this, if I were sitting and having an interview on this is how I look at it. If I were interviewing about this, I'd be able to say, yeah, we've impacted these people, and this is how it applies to our mission. And not just it's a great idea and it's still forming or still being executed in the infancy. So Mark, please.
Yeah, I've been, Victoria, I think you're aware of this, Mary Kate, as well. I just recently underwent a kitchen renovation. So my head is in like food stuff. And I just thought, yeah, you just stick a toothpick in the middle. If it comes out clean, then that means your program's ready to go. If only it were that simple, right? It really isn't that simple. I mentioned earlier that one of the questions we now ask on the application is whether or not you've submitted an application for this program in the past. The reason that's important for us is, number one, as I mentioned before, we're not looking to award programs again that have been awarded in the past, and it gives us a way to research that. But it's also a question for us to know, okay, is this a program that perhaps submitted previously and wasn't quite ready enough and is now coming to us because they've now had some measurable impacts? It allows us to look at it from that viewpoint as well. And I say that in part because I want those of you who are filling out an application to know that even if you submit too soon, if it turns out that you do not get an award at any level, you can resubmit that application. So it's not that you can't submit more than once, it's that you can't be awarded more than once. So it could be that you submitted at one point and maybe you just didn't have enough measurable impact, or maybe the level of impact you had for whatever reason didn't measure up to some of the other programs we were looking at. And as the program has continued, 20 years later, there's something else that has happened that has taken the program to another level. You may want to resubmit at that point. So I say that in part because I want to make sure that those of you who are applying aren't discouraged by the fact that perhaps you didn't get an award, or aren't perhaps holding back on submitting something because you're not quite sure. If you don't have anything that's truly measurable, then I would say maybe it's too soon. But if you feel that you have had an impact, I would say try it. In worst case scenario is that you've gone through the process, you're familiar with how it works. And while we do not give feedback back to applicants after the fact, the response that you get back will give you an indication of perhaps, okay, maybe I need to wait a little longer and let this quote unquote cook a little longer before I resubmit, if I choose to resubmit. And you are welcome to do that, assuming that you haven't won an award in the past for that same program.
And that brings us to our next question. Will first-time applicants get any feedback on the application if they don't make it to the final list?
Our practice has been to not do that. It's one of the things that we've done this year that's new, and I mentioned it sort of in passing earlier, that we haven't had before. We've put together a guide to walk you through the entire application. And that guide provides you with information on every single field that the application includes, along with a description of what we're looking for in each of those fields. So our hope is that by giving you these instructions, these tips, this guide, that'll give you a better sense of what we're looking for, in lieu of us being able to give you direct feedback after the fact. Because that is one thing that we as an award committee will not do. We will not sit with you afterwards and sort of walk you through why your application, perhaps didn't get a particular award, either no award at all or a higher level award. That is something that we as judges will not do with an applicant. But we are looking at other ways, such as this new guide, to give you as an applicant more direct insight and information about what we're looking for as judges and what may help steer us in a particular direction when we make our decisions.
Here's another question that I can take a crack at. A question about how does winning a Summit Award, well, actually, I'll ask Victoria first. As a 3-time winner, how does winning a Summit Award benefit the program in terms of elevating awareness, justifying the program expenses, et cetera?
Well, I don't know that I can answer the justifying program expenses, but I think that for elevating awareness, we receive the 100+, 150+ applications every year. And it rotates through. There are certainly some organizations that apply on a pretty regular basis, but every year there's all kinds of new associations that do. So there's hundreds and hundreds of associations actively curious about the Power of Association Awards. And then there's more that don't apply, but certainly know about it or have heard about it. So I think that when the Summit Awards come out and those videos come out, you suddenly get this wonderful insight into unique programs across the spectrum of associations, both for mission and size and geography. And you certainly get queries. So I think it does elevate, whether it's just the listings and people notice it. It could be that they notice that you're in a certain part of the country. And I've heard about that before, like associations in the Midwest will get a call just from a Midwest association, hearing about it. And then I think there can be queries elevating and queries about programs that have won from organizations who might want to be going into a different mission area or want to know how you worked through. It could be anything from governance to finances, to how do you get your volunteers to be involved or get your volunteers on board. So I think that winning an award certainly can elevate the program, period. It can bring more curiosity and more associations forward to say to you, hey, we're seeking some advice. Could you maybe provide some? Like I said, for your last one on the financials, I don't know that I could respond to that directly.
Thank you so much. And I'll just note, we discussed this, but we have winners at the gold to silver and then summit level. And we have a new marketing strategy this year because we know we can do a better job using those videos and those written stories to really tell outside audiences the Power of Association story. So I'm very excited about all the promotion we'll do for winners this year.
Yeah, I wanted to mention something that I thought of as well, that as Victoria and I both mentioned, when we look at these applications come through, whether it's for people, whether it's for programs that we've awarded or not, it is a very inspiring process. And I think that any way that we can find to share information about our winners much more sort of proactively out into the association community, I think the better all associations will be for that, because number one, to Victoria's point, I think it may help inspire groups to think about ways in which they may want to orchestrate, design, devise, execute their own program approach and program strategies. And number two, going back to the partner question that we had before, it may also spark interest in certain associations to reach out to associations that have been awarded to say, wow, we're looking to do something like that, and maybe we're even in a similar field. Can we work together on something? So it may help to foster some collaborations that people are looking for help with. So I would say, to whatever extent we can help push that out into the more global association community, the better off we are. And I wanted to mention one other thing that I neglected to mention earlier. Although we have gone through some updates to the process and to the application and things of that nature. We still realize that there may be things that we want to improve, additional things we want to improve moving forward. And one of the things that we've talked about, and we'll see if we get to this point or not, but we want to make sure that we're also gathering input from those of you in the application space. As an applicant, we want to hear what your experience has been like in filling out the application and in the overall process, so that we can use that to then inform future changes to the process. What we've done so far has been based on us as judges, and yes, some of us have also been applicants, such as Victoria and her association, but we were focusing on it mostly from the judging perspective, with some bit of applicant knowledge in there as well. I think at some point, if we get to that later this year in our goals, we'll see if we can reach out to the applicant community after the process, maybe with a feedback survey, say, you know, what did you think of the process? What do you think worked well? What do you think can be improved? So we as a committee can go back and look at that and see if there's an opportunity for us to make additional changes moving forward.
Great. So we have a question about the Chair's Choice Award. What are the criteria? Can you explain the example of a past winner? And I can take a first crack at that. This is actually something new this year. In the past, the committee would it's always a really tough decision. So they would have 2 or 3 incredible applications that were not the top scorer, and they would give that to the CEO, and it would be the CEO's choice. And we never shared publicly or even with the winners which kind of who was the winner, what category. This year we're focused on increased transparency and especially, you know, in this effort in this webinar to really explain the process. So we are switching this to a Chair's Choice. And those the committee will decide on those couple amazing applications to give in the parking lot per se, and then the chair will make that decision. And Mark, anything I missed?
No, that's pretty much it. And one thing that may be helpful for folks in terms of process, we keep talking about these 100 plus 150 applications that we review collectively. The process that we go through is we look at these applications in each of the categories that they've been submitted for. So each of the 5 categories has some number of applications every year. In total, for all of those, it's in that 150 or somewhat range. Within each category, the numbers can vary. You know, there are some where we get maybe a couple dozen, and some where we're in the 10s, 20s, 30s. So it can vary based on category. But what we do as a committee within each category is we select what we believe to be our silver level and gold level winners. We then use the gold level category to further review. And at that point, everybody on the committee reviews every selection in the gold category. And maybe I should take a step back. In that first step, that 150 or so, where we have, you know, every single application, every judge does not review every single application in that first round. Every judge is assigned somewhere between 30 and 50 total applications in that first round. We then collectively take our scores to come up with and have a discussion about each of those scores to then select that silver level and gold level category. Once we've agreed on our gold level category, every member on the judging committee then goes back and reevaluates all of the gold level category winners to choose our Summit Award winners in each of the 5 categories. So that's the current process we use. And what we're talking about here with the Chair's Choice is that there's always that 1 or 2 association or 1 or 2 applications and programs that are still standouts that didn't quite get to that summit level that we still feel deserve a certain level of recognition. And that's what in the past has been handled by the CEO, and which we are this year doing as a Chair's Choice. So the committee, again, will narrow things down to those 2 or 3 that we may still want to consider for this special recognition. In years prior, we would hand those off to the CEO, but this year, Victoria and I will join heads on that and choose one from that small group that the committee has selected.
So we are coming up on time, but I'd love some final comments from Mark and Victoria. What's your top tip for applicants, or a final piece of wisdom to leave them with?
I think don't be afraid of applying. If you think, oh, I'll never win, or only X, insert whatever it is, big, small, you know, geographically large, geographically small, whatever, win. If you feel you have a project that is really mission critical or mission expanding and it is making an impact, whether it's on a 5-mile radius or a 500-mile radius, whatever it is, and you think that it's worth something, it is absolutely worth something and you should apply for it. Just think about it through that lens of mission critical or mission expanding and that outcomes, and really focus on why it's so critical and why it is something that you decided to do, because odds are this is a program that your organization has decided to do, right? It's not like probably not a regular revenue generating program. So really talk to us about why this is so important and why you're doing it and what it does for the community and that you're serving and for you. So don't be afraid, do it.
And I'll echo what Victoria said and only add that we as judges value the time that you've put into the process, and not just the application process, but the time that you put into these programs that you're submitting. So we regardless of whether or not you've been awarded one of these recognitions or not, we thank you for the work that you do. We thank you for taking the time to submit this information to us. And we hope that through this process, we've given you a bit of an insight into the life of a Power of Associations Awards judge and committee member. And then, you know, maybe we have some, do we want to close with some tips for folks? Mary Kate, do you want me to bring that up?
Sure, yeah, we have some deadlines we'll remind you of. So April 30th is the deadline. The committee will then begin their judging in May, June, and then July, August is when we'll notify recipients. The Summit Award winners will be on stage at the Summit Awards on September 29th, 2022 at the National Building Museum in Washington, D.C. And you can see more information on how to apply at the application guide in the chat and on thepowerofassociations.org. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions, this is the email address that goes to our team, and we can help you try to navigate any additional questions. But we really appreciate you applying. Again, the stories that we get from these awards are so helpful in telling Congress and outside audiences the role associations play. Because I'm the lobbyist, I have to say associations were excluded from the Paycheck Protection Program because Congress had a misunderstanding of the role of associations and how we train the workforce and drive the economy. And these stories really help give us tangible stories to bring to the Hill, and we're very thankful. Thank you so much to our speakers today, and we thank you for joining this webinar, and good luck.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
We'll
everyone.
look forward to seeing your applications.